Hi, everybody. Owen Callan here from Sea Castle Incorporated. Looking to contribute to the role-playing gamer community a little bit. I've discovered something called virtual tabletops, which I'm surprised to find out that I knew nothing about, given the fact that I have almost a 50-year history in gaming and an even longer time spent playing with computers and building software. So I've looked very closely at virtual tabletops in the past couple of weeks, and I am uh, frankly disappointed with what I see because I've witnessed people missing the purpose of virtual tabletops, in my humble opinion. The purpose for virtual tabletops is to facilitate tabletop role-playing games. There needs to be an integration of the physical world of tabletops with the virtual world so people can play remotely. And so we need to bring those two worlds together, and I'm going to do it through something called augmented reality tabletops, a term that I believe no one else has used before. So I am officially laying my claim to the art of virtual tabletops. A table doesn't really care about what rules are played on it. You can play tic-tac-toe on a table. You can play Dungeons and Dragons until people who claim that they own the IP say that you can't speak that name anymore. You can play Pathfinder. You can play Cards. You can play Terra Mystica. You can play Everdell. There's all sorts of board games you can play around a table that the table is agnostic about the rules. One of the tool sets that I use personally in business and in gaming now are the Microsoft's Power Platform tools. Things like Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, and that fun type of stuff. So the lowest of the low-hanging piece of fruits is a character sheet. The purpose of tabletop role-playing games is to facilitate role-playing in a whatever milieu, whatever fantasy or science fiction or Wild Wild West or whatever sort of setting you choose to bring your characters to life in. And usually people are using miniatures to do this. This is how I started in 45, 50 years ago. So we're going to show you how to use Power Apps to create a character sheet. And the way that we're going to do that is by starting from Excel. Let's figure most of you probably know how to use Excel already. And so I've taken the liberty of listing out, let's see how many we have here. 123 different types of piece of data that we might like to see included in any character sheets, regardless of whatever class the character is meant to represent. All characters will need to identify who the player name is, for instance, what the character name is, what the date is that the character began, what the character race is. There's a lot more information that you may want to include on your character sheets, and that's kind of the point of this video. You can put together whatever fields you want. It doesn't matter what sort of executive on whichever coast decides that there's a right way and a wrong way to build character sheets. You can decide. I'd like to see them come into my house and tell me what I can put into Excel, for instance. It's ridiculous. All right, so I am now going to take this list and turn it into a table. And the way that I do that is I'm going to go to the second item in the list here. I'm going to hold down the Shift key. I'm going to hit the end button, and then I'm going to hit the arrow to go to the very end of the list here. And I will hold down Control C at the same time to copy this. Then I'm going to go to cell B1 here, the second column, first row. And now I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste special, in that I'm going to transpose these values. So that's this symbol here. And when you transpose, it takes a list that's going vertically and it turns it horizontal, or it takes a horizontal list and it turns it vertical. It keeps the exact same list in the exact same order. It just puts it out to the right here. Right? And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm going to turn those values into table headers. Right? So now that I've copied that, I can go back to this original list of character sheet values, and I can delete those now. And I'm going to go to the end of the list that I have here. I'm going to go to the insert menu, and on the ribbon, or insert ribbon rather, on the insert ribbon in the tables section, I'll click on table. So we're going to insert a table, and this table has headers. So we click on OK, and you'll know that you've created a table properly when you've got the darker shaded color, depending upon the theme that you're using. In my case here is blue, which shows those same values that we had for the character sheet fields are now headers in this table. Another thing to point out to you, in Excel here, you see that there is a table design ribbon. If you click on the table design ribbon, there is a properties field over here on the left where you can give this table a name. So I'm going to give this table the name of my character. Actually, let's make it one word without underscore. So character sheet data. All right, so my character sheet data, and actually let's call it my character sheet data table. Let's even go that more detailed. Character sheet data table. All right. So from here, I can draw data from this table in Excel into Power Apps. Right? So I can use Power Apps to generate the data and put it into Excel here, or I can work with Excel directly to create a character here and import that into Excel. Right? All right, so now we have our character data in a table in a spreadsheet. Some of you may not yet be aware of this thing called Power Apps, and so I'll show you the path to get to it to show you how you can start building apps for free. But just in case people are suspicious about how much this might cost you, there are different ways that you can approach Power Apps after your trial. So if you only want an initial trial to generate a character sheet and be done with it, you can do that. Cost you nothing except your time. If, however, you like what you're working with, then you have subscriptions that can be done either on a per user basis or on a per app basis, free. And if you get started for free, they're going to ask you for some information about your email and such, but there's no cost to getting started. So here we are in my Power Apps environment where I've started work on a character generator app was what I first started doing this for, so I could keep track of my encounters and spin up a bunch of NPC characters to run in the campaign that I'm playing with the younger set here today. And just to give you a quick taste of what it's looking like so far in all its bare bones simplicity here from the home page, we can go to a character sheet. All of the information you see here so far right now is wired up to just the app. Right? None of this is working with any externally stored data. This is all hard-coded. So I have drop-down lists here, for instance, which show you all the races that I've chosen to include in the character sheet I want to work with. And so I do have the half-pint character that's here. But again, those are hard-coded fields, and I'm not grabbing them from any data source. Right? I have put in some functions into these buttons here so that I can generate random characters to spin them up. And as I mentioned, I've been intending to include things like race adjustments and that type of thing to give me my final scores. And then over here, we have an export button on the right-hand side here so that we can update it in Excel. I haven't included that functionality yet, so this is where we're going to see it done now. Let's show you how this was put together. And so let's show you how this was done very simply with a very simple example. So I'm going to close out the example flow here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a new screen that just has a blank screen on it. So now that we have our character sheet data in an Excel file, in a table in an Excel file, we can use that data in a Power Apps app to populate data forms and galleries to show us the content and to change it. So first thing that we can take a look at to show you this is we can insert a vertical gallery. We can insert a vertical gallery, and you can see here by default it's wired up to nothing, lorem ipsum 1. You can go searching for a connector, and in the list of connectors, you can go search for Excel Online. So to attach that data source, that Excel file to this vertical gallery, will in the properties pane over on the right, the data source we'll choose will be the character sheet data. And now you're seeing that there are 2 records inside that table because it's giving us 2 blank rows, empty rows. We want to change the layout here. Change the layout to be the title, subtitle, and body. And so we see that there are fields that are associated with this rather than the title being the base naked, because that's just the very first field. It's just grabbing the first 3 fields to put them in order here. So these were the default fields that were associated with the title, the subtitle, and the body. You can include additional pieces of information as well inside the vertical gallery. If you click in the vertical gallery, you see it gives an outline to the entire gallery, the entire component, the entire control. If you want to make formatting changes, if you want to add additional data or additional items to all of the cards in the gallery, you need to click on the top card. And you'll see that you have focus on that when you have the outline, the blue outline with the dots on it. So again, if I click on that second row or anywhere else inside that gallery, it's going to give an outline to the entire tool, to the entire control, which is not what I want when I want to add additional items to each card. So if I click in that first item, then I can insert, for instance, a text label. Right? And so here you see that the default value going into that text label was the next field available in the list of the character, the character charisma maximum attachment, and that's not what we want here. We want this label here. I'm going to go after the piece of data that is this item. So each row, each card in the gallery is going to be this item on its own. And I want the character strength. That's value. I want to know what the character strength is. So character strength. Come on. There it is. Character strength. So there's the character strength. And so now it's just giving me that number. Which is the value that's in the spreadsheet. So if we were to go back to the spreadsheet, we'd see it there. So you can add the label. You can insert the a label that brings up any field that you want, to the data, and then you can attach some text to that so that we know what that value is, right? Or we can abbreviate it. Or if you wanted to call it something entirely different, maybe it's might. Right? Maybe it's Hercules. Right? Whatever you want to call it. And don't let anybody tell you how you can use your data. Right? So there's the strength. I want to, let's make this a little bit wider. And just a little bit wider. Actually, we're going to double up these attributes. Look at this. So now Control C to copy it, Control V to paste it. And again, we did both the Control C and the Control V when we had given focus to that thing that we wanted to copy. Now it gave us an exact duplicate of what we just took because it's a copy. So again, I want this to be a different attributes. So we want that to be, say, intelligence. And then we want the intelligence score. All right, so there's the character intelligence. And if I want to change that data, and if I want to add more data to that spreadsheet, I will have to either open that spreadsheet and work directly on that spreadsheet, or I can create a component, I can create a control in Power Apps that can do that for me. And that control is called a data form. So I can insert an input there as the edit form. All right. So the edit form is a data form. We can point to the same data source as the gallery that we're seeing over here. All right. So right now you're seeing a blank data form because we haven't told it what fields that we want to include in this data form. So there's a purple button here. This is edit fields, and we can pick and choose which fields to add. So we click on add, and it's going to wire up all of those fields to the data form. Now you can see the data form here with those fields that are available to be updated with additional information. When you added those fields, they were all made available to be edited. Right? But let's say that you don't want the player name to be changeable. So you would change it to from an edit text control type to a view text control type, for instance. So you can only see player names and you can't change those. All right. So now that I've made that change, if I was to run this, you see there's no item to display, and that's because we haven't told the data form which of the records to show. And so the way that we'll do that is we give focus to the data form. So I see that form 2 is got focus at this point, and the data source is again the character sheet data table, but now we need to tell it what is the default item. So there is an item here, and we want that item to reflect the choice that we've made in the gallery. So let's see what the name of the gallery is over here. It's called Gallery 4. And again, I found that out by clicking on the gallery control, and I can see the name of that is over in the properties pane on the right. And again, it's called Gallery 4. So here, now I'm going to click on the data form, and I'm going to set the item here to be Gallery 4 dot selected. All right. And now once you chose that item to be Gallery 4 dot selected, you see that the data form is filling up with the values of the card that's been given focus on the gallery. And so if I run this, and you can see that that very first character with the player name of Sue has got the character of Billy. If I click on the second item, you see that the player name of Owen has got the character name of Fred with those values. Now, this is leaving me a little bit confused because I'm not sure which item in the gallery over here I've selected. So one piece that might be helpful for you, if you click on the first card in the gallery, there is a template fill property. And by default, the background of each of these cards is white. That's what the red, green, blue color of 0000 is white. Red, green, blue, and amber, I guess. So let's see if I go home and if I enter if. Okay. So if this item dot is selected, so let's expand this so you can see the whole thing. Okay. So if this item is selected, we want that to stand out. So let's give it a beige color. Otherwise, let's let it be white. All right, so like this. And so now once we put that little bit of code in the template fill section, now when we run the app here, when I click on a different row in the gallery, we see that it's got the beige background, and we see that information being reflected in the data form. All right, so put in a button that we can use to make the data happen. So we're going to insert a button, and we're going to drag that button over here. We're going to say the text for this button should be update character. Okay. And let's make it a little bigger so we can see the text on that button. All right, so this button right now, when you click on that to give it focus, it has a property of on select. You see that it says it's on, it's got a value of false. When we press this button, we want the values in the data form to update the spreadsheet. Right? So let's say on select, we want to submit form. Right? And the name of that form was form 2. Right? I can tell that it's form 2 when I'm writing my formula, by the way, because you see the green underlining in my box, my input box up here, and I've got a green outline box for that control on the canvas that's there. All right, so again, form 2 is that data form. Okay. So when I click this button while the app is running, it is going to submit the data that is in the fields that are available here for editing. All right, so after I do that, the values will be updated in the spreadsheet. But I might not see that information reflected in Power Apps here unless I do something like this, which is a refresh, and I want to refresh the character sheet data table, which is the data source. So as you can see, it's quite simple to create a spreadsheet to keep track of your character statistics, and then to use that spreadsheet as a data source in Power Apps. But what if you want to work with other tools, other virtual tabletops, or other character sheets applications that are out there? A lot of the tools these days would be using something called JSON, JavaScript Object Notation, as the source, or excuse me, as the format of the data that it needs for the import. And so there is a way that you can create that very easily through Power Automate. If I go to make.powerautomate.com and I go to create an instant cloud flow, you can trigger it using Power Apps. All right. So let's do that. All right. You can trigger it using Power Apps. And so when we create this, it's going to give us the Power Apps entry point. This is where Power Apps is going to come in. We add a new step where, for instance, we might want to get a variable so we can initialize. So once you have generated all the prompts for the variables with the data that you want to export from your character sheet, then you can add another step to initialize another variable. The variable we want to initialize this time is an array. So we're going to rename this to initialize data array. All right. And this is going to be the var Okay, and the type is going to be an array here. All right, and so your initial value of this, if you notice, each time that we added a new variable that we were initializing, we could have chosen the previous variables as the input value for that new variable. And that's what we're going to do now for the array here with the character data. So we're going to create an array that has the strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, and charisma. We'll close out that array. And now once we have an array, we can choose a data operation that's called compose. So when we have a compose data operation, we can rename this to convert the array to JSON. All right, and so here for the input, what we're going to do is we're going to use an expression. Okay, so here with the expression, we want the JSON expression, and now it's prompting us for a string value. So we're going to insert the string, and now we want the. So now let's say OK. All right, so that should work to produce the JSON, and now we need something to bring the information back to our Power App. So now we're going to respond to Power Apps. So there is respond to Power Apps, and in this we want to add the outputs. We want it to be text. We want this to be, say, a message value, and the value we want is the output from convert the array to JSON. All right, so we'll throw that there. Okay, so let's save that. It's always a good idea to test these flows before you try and use them. So let's go ahead and test it. All right, it wants a manual input of these values. So let's say 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16. All right, run the flow. All right, so far so good. We're looking for green check marks. We saw green check marks all the way through. So at the bottom down here, we do see that there is a message which shows what that's going to look like. Okay. Okay, so here in the app, we want a way to generate that export. So we'll throw in a button. All right. And we'll give that button a text which says export. All right. And now let's put in a label right next to that. Let's grab that label. And we want this to be our variable flow message. Okay, so you see right now we're getting a red X because there is no such thing as this variable flow message. Right? And so now let's give it a way to find that. So here in the export to JSON, we're going to set. Oh, wait, before we do anything else, so first false, let's set that back to false. One other thing that we need to do is add the Power Automate flow. So there it is, the RPG character sheet demo. We want to add that flow. Okay, so now that that flow is in our app, I can add it to this button here. So I click on the export to JSON button in the on select property for that. I will set, because I'm gonna bring back the message from that flow, and so I'm gonna change the gallery 4, and we see that we're working with gallery 4 because it's got the border that shows up with the green line that matches the green underlining in my cable here, or in my code. So gallery 4 dot selected dot strength. All right, we want character strength. So there's my strength. That's for intelligence. And it's the same thing as gallery 4 dot selected. All right, so we're running that, and then we want a dot message to come back from that, right? And then close out the parens. Yep. So if I format the text here, so sets the variable message back to be the message that comes from that flow. All right, and now what's this, Redx? Oh, because it's not message back, it's the flow message. So this says variable flow message. So that's what we want this to be. We want this to be variable flow message. Flow message. Button here, insert button. All right, so I'm going to use this button just to test that my label is working right. So on select, set our flow message to be, this is blank message. Okay. All right, so, and then let's expand that button so we can see all the text on it. Okay, so let's run this. All right, so if I create the flow message, all that does is it populates that variable with this as a blank message. Okay, great. Now let's go ahead and choose this second character here. So we've got Owen and Fred and all the lawful good and lawful nature. Export to JSON. So now we see that it went out to the Power Automate. It took in the values of the 14, the 13, the 12, 17, 16, so on and so forth that were assigned to the character. It converted it to JSON, and then it brought it back. Right, so this has been a really messy video, a real messy demo on the total flexibility you have with Power Apps to be able to create your own character sheets for role-playing games. And I am going to be releasing better videos than this, hopefully, on a fairly regular basis. I intend to try and get it to at least a monthly basis, but if I can do it on a weekly basis, I will do that. We will show you how you can build your own virtual tabletops with existing technology that is far superior to anything that's on the market today, and you can own it all. You don't have to let anybody dictate to you how you're using the rules that you use for your games. And so I hope this has been helpful for you. Please comment how we can improve these videos to make them more useful for you. If you have subjects or topics that you'd like us to cover, I would be all ears for putting those in the queue of what we'll address. So thanks for listening, and good gaming.